Good morning again, 7th grade. We just went over those vocabulary answers to choosing the right word, or maybe this is your first video, in which case you'll be watching that one next. Now we're going to jump into the Giver, chapter 22. So as you might remember, in chapter 21, we see that Jonas and Gabe have escaped from the community, and they are trying to continue moving towards elsewhere. We know that Jonas is getting a little bit more and more tired, but that the search planes have seemingly stopped looking for him. So we can make plenty of guesses and inferences about what that might mean back at the community, remembering that that is where the Giver is. So the Giver is still back at the community trying to help everyone deal with the restoration of these memories they've been hiding from for so long. So think about, as we continue to read about Jonas's journey, in the back of your mind, I want you to be considering what it's like for the people still in his community who are still struggling with suddenly remembering pain, war, violence, love, happiness, and family, but getting all of those emotions all together at once and not being able to know why. Chapter 22 begins on page 214. Now the landscape was changing. It was a subtle change, hard to identify at first. The road was narrower and bumpy, apparently no longer tended by road crews. It was harder, suddenly, to balance on the bike as the front wheel wobbled over stones and ruts. One night, when Jonas fell, the bike jolted to a sudden stop against a rock. He grabbed instinctively for Gabriel, and the new child, strapped tightly in his seat, was uninjured, only frightened when the bike fell to its side. But Jonas's ankle was twisted, and his knees were scraped and raw, blood seeping through his torn trousers. Painfully, he righted himself and the bike and reassured Gabe. Tentatively, he began to ride in daylight. He had forgotten the fear of the searchers, who seemed to have diminished into the past. But now there were new fears, unfamiliar landscape held hidden, unknown perils. Trees became more numerous, and the forests beside the road were dark and thick with mystery. They saw streams more frequently now and stopped often to drink. Jonas carefully washed his injured knees, wincing as he rubbed at the raw flesh. The constant ache of his swollen ankle was eased when he soaked it occasionally in the cold water that rushed through roadside gullies. He was newly aware that Gabriel's safety depended entirely on his own continued strength. They saw their first waterfall, and for the first time, wildlife. "Plane! Plane!" Gabriel called, and Jonas turned swiftly into the trees, though he had not seen planes in days, and he did not hear an aircraft engine now. When he stopped the bicycle in the shrubbery and turned to grab Gabe, he saw the small, chubby arm pointing toward the sky. Terrified, he looked up, but it was not a plane at all. Though he had never seen one before, he identified it from his fading memories, for the Giver had given them to him often. It was a bird. Soon there were many birds along the way, soaring overhead, calling. They saw deer, and once, beside the road, looking at them curious and unafraid, a small reddish-brown creature with a thick tail, whose name Jonas did not know. I think it was a fox. He slowed the bike, and they stared at one another until the creature turned away and disappeared into the woods. All of it was new to him. After a life of sameness and predictability, he was awed by the surprises that lay beyond each curve of the road. He slowed the bike again and again to look with wonder at wildflowers, to enjoy the throaty warble of a new bird nearby, or merely to watch the way wind shifted the leaves in the trees. During his 12 years,